Help us! Please, somebody help! The screams sliced through the November rain like broken glass. Two little girls dragged toward a black van by armed kidnappers. Dozens of people nearby. Not one moved. Except one man. Jackson Owen, a decorated war veteran, now homeless and shattered by false accusations, rose from the cold pavement. A man the system abandoned, but still the only one brave enough to stand between evil and two innocent children. What happened next would uncover a criminal network, shake the powerful, and prove that the greatest heroes are often the ones the world throws away. Before we continue, tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. The rain hammered down like bullets against concrete. Each drop exploded on impact, creating a deafening rhythm that filled the parking lot beneath the overpass. Jackson Owen pressed his back against the cold wall, pulling his worn military jacket tighter. The cardboard beneath him was soaked through. Again. He'd have to find a new shelter tomorrow, but for now, this was home. 35 years old, 8 months homeless. A lifetime ago, he'd led soldiers through combat in Afghanistan. Now he counted himself lucky if he found a dry place to sleep. Everything else, his rank, his honor, his son, gone. All gone. He closed his eyes, trying to block out the memories that haunted him every night. Then he heard it. A scream. High-pitched. Terrified. Young. Jackson's eyes snapped open. His body went rigid, every muscle tensing with military precision. He'd heard screams before, in war zones, in firefights, but this was different. This was pure terror.
Help us, please. Somebody help. Children. He rolled to his feet, scanning the parking lot below. Through the curtain of rain, he saw them. A black van, doors open, 2 men in dark clothing, and 2 small figures fighting desperately against their grip. Twin girls. Couldn't be more than 7 or 8 years old. Long, curly blonde hair plastered to their heads. Designer dresses torn and muddy. They kicked and screamed and clawed at their captors with everything they had. "Mommy! Mommy, help us!" One of the girls bit down hard on our kidnapper's hand. He cursed, yanking his arm back, but his partner grabbed her other arm and started dragging her toward the van. Jackson didn't think, didn't hesitate, didn't calculate the risks or odds. He just moved. His boots hit the wet grass of the embankment. He slid, caught himself, kept running. The rain blurred his vision, but he locked onto the van, onto those 2 small girls who were about to disappear forever. "Hey!" His voice, the command voice that had once directed soldiers in combat, cut through the storm like a blade. Both men spun around. The taller one's hand went immediately to his waistband. Jackson saw the gun even before the man pulled it free. He didn't slow down. "Walk away, old man." The kidnapper's voice was cold, professional. This ain't his first time. Jackson kept advancing. 20 feet. 15. The girls' faces were visible now. Identical features twisted in terror, tears mixing with rain. "Let them go." The armed man laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. "Or what? You'll call the cops?" He gestured at Jackson's disheveled appearance, his worn clothes, his hollow cheeks. "Nobody gonna believe a bum. Nobody cares what you saw." The second kidnapper had almost gotten one of the girls, the one with a small mole on her left cheek. She was sobbing now, her small voice breaking. "Please, please don't." Something inside Jackson cracked. He'd spent 8 months invisible. 8 months watching the world pass him by, treating him like trash, like he didn't exist. They were right about one thing. Nobody would believe him. Nobody would care. But these girls would be gone. Terrified. Hurt. Maybe killed.
With the speed of lightning,
Jackson lunged. The kidnapper's finger was already on the trigger, but Jackson had covered the distance faster than expected. He used the wet pavement to his advantage, sliding low under the gun's trajectory like he'd done 100 times in training. His shoulder drove into the man's stomach with the full force of his sprint. The gun went off. Fire exploded through Jackson's left shoulder. White-hot agony that stole his breath, but momentum carried them both backwards, crushing hard onto the wet asphalt. Training took over. Even through the pain, even malnourished from months on the streets, muscle memory prevailed. Jackson grabbed the gun hand, slammed it against the pavement, once, twice, 3 times until the weapon skittered away across the parking lot. "Run!" he shouted at the girls. "Run and hide, now!" The twin with the mole, Claire, though he didn't know her name yet, didn't hesitate. She grabbed her sister's hand and they bolted, their small legs pumping as fast as they could. They disappeared behind a cluster of dumpsters 30 feet away. The second kidnapper abandoned his pursuit of the girls. He rushed toward Jackson, who was still grappling with his partner on the ground. 2 against 1. Jackson's shoulders screamed with every movement, blood soaking through his jacket. The wound was bad. He could feel it, but he couldn't stop. Not yet. The armed kidnapper retrieved his gun. "You just signed your death warrant, hero." "Wouldn't be the first time," Jackson muttered. The man raised the weapon. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had heard the gunshot. The kidnappers heard it too. They exchanged a sharp glance. Years of criminal partnership speaking without words. "We're out," the second one muttered. "What about the merchandise?" "Gone. Cut our losses." "We shouldn't have let them out when they said they needed the toilet. Boss is going to be mad. We're done for."
The armed man shot Jackson a look full of pure hatred. For a moment, Jackson thought he'd pull the trigger anyway. But then the man lowered his weapon, turned, and both kidnappers sprinted to their van. Tires screamed against wet pavement. The van fishtailed once, then disappeared into the storm. Jackson's knees buckled. He caught himself on one hand, the other pressed against his bleeding shoulder. The pain was overwhelming now, adrenaline wearing off. "Mister?" A small voice, hesitant but brave. The twins emerged from behind the dumpsters. They approached slowly, their identical faces streaked with tears and rain. "You're hurt," one of them said. Her voice trembled, but she moved closer, not away. "Mommy says we should help people who are hurt," the other added. She was already pulling off her designer cardigan, probably cost more than everything Jackson owned, and pressing it against his wound with surprising determination. "You saved us," the first twin whispered. "Why?" Jackson looked at their faces. So young, so scared. In their eyes he saw another child. Brown hair instead of blonde, a boy instead of girls. His son, Levi. "Because," his voice cracked, "because that's what dads do. They protect kids. All kids." The sirens were closer now. Red and blue lights reflected off wet pavement, creating kaleidoscopic patterns. "What's your name?" the girl with the mole asked. "Jackson. Jackson Owen." "I'm Claire. That's my sister Chloe. We're 7. "Well, Claire and Chloe." His vision was starting to blur. "You're very brave. Your mom is going to be so proud of you." Chloe was crying now, but still pressing the cardigan against his wound. "Don't die, Mr. Jackson. Please don't die. You're a hero." Hero. The word felt foreign, wrong. Heroes didn't end up homeless under overpasses. Heroes didn't lose everything. But maybe heroes were just people who showed up when it mattered. The police cars screeched to a halt. Officers poured out, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Then came the ambulances, their sirens adding to the chaos.
Everything became a blur of voices and lights and hands lifting him onto a stretcher. "The girls," he tried to say. "Are the girls—" "They're safe," a paramedic said. "You got them out. They're safe because of you." As they loaded him into the ambulance, Jackson saw one more vehicle arrive. Not a police car or ambulance. A Bentley. Glossy black, immaculate despite the rain. The kind of car that cost more than most people made in 5 years. A woman emerged from the back seat. Even through his fading consciousness, Jackson noticed her. Long, straight blonde hair, designer suit, the kind of presence that commanded attention. But none of that mattered when she saw the twins. "My babies!" Her voice cracked with raw emotion. All that polish and power shattered in an instant. She fell to her knees on the wet pavement, pulling both girls into her arms. "Oh God, my babies!" "Mommy!" Claire and Chloe clung to her, sobbing. "Mommy, the bad men, but Mr. Jackson saved us. He fought them and got shot and—" The woman's eyes found Jackson as they loaded him into the ambulance. For a moment, their gazes locked. She mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." Then the ambulance doors closed, and Jackson let the darkness take him. He woke to the smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of monitors. Hospital. Private room. The kind with actual furniture and windows instead of curtains dividing beds. How am I paying for this? The thought hit him immediately. He had no insurance, no money, no... "You're awake." Jackson turned his head. The woman from the Bentley sat in a chair beside his bed. Her suit was different, she must have gone home and changed, but those eyes were the same, sharp, intelligent, missing nothing. Behind her, on a small couch, Claire and Chloe slept curled together under a blanket. "How long?" His voice came out rough. 18 hours. You had surgery. The bullet went through your shoulder but missed anything vital. You'll recover fully with physical therapy." She said it matter-of-factly, but something in her voice suggested she'd demanded those details from multiple doctors. "I can't afford—" "Already handled." She waved a hand dismissively. "The hospital bill, the surgery, everything, it's covered." Jackson tried to sit up, winced at the pain. "I don't take charity." "It's not charity, Mr. Owen. It's the least I can do for the man who brought my daughters back to me." Her voice cracked slightly on the last words, the corporate armor slipping for just a moment. She took a breath, steadying herself. 2 days ago, my daughters were kidnapped. They were at the park with their nanny, Maria. She'd been with us for 5 years. 3 men ambushed them, put Maria in the hospital with a concussion, took Claire and Chloe. Jackson's chest tightened. 2 days? Jennifer nodded, her jaw clenched. 48 hours. The FBI was involved immediately, but there was no ransom demand, nothing. That's when we knew it wasn't about money. She stood, pacing now, her hands trembling slightly. "Do you understand what that means? When kidnappers don't ask for money?" "They're not planning to return them," Jackson said quietly. "Exactly." Jennifer's voice was barely above a whisper. "Every hour that passed, every minute, I kept thinking about what might be happening to them. If they were scared, if they were hurt, if they were even still—" She stopped, unable to finish the sentence. "But they're here now," Jackson said gently. "They're safe." "Because of you." Jennifer turned to face him fully. "The FBI tracked the van after the kidnappers fled last night, found them 3 hours later at a warehouse near the docks. When they arrested them, one of the men, the one you fought actually, he broke, started talking immediately." She pulled out her tablet, brought up a file. It wasn't random. It was part of a larger operation. Corporate espionage taken to its most evil extreme. "What do you mean?" "One of my competitors, Marcus Ventrell, CEO of Ventrell Technologies. We've been in a bidding war for a major government contract. Winner takes all, loser loses millions." Her voice hardened. "He didn't kidnap my daughters for ransom. He wanted to destroy me, make me lose focus, pour all my resources into finding them. While I was distracted and vulnerable, he'd swoop in and take everything." Jackson felt sick. The girls were just leverage? Worse. According to the kidnapper's confession, Ventrell had buyers lined up, foreign nationals. My daughters were going to be sold and trafficked overseas. Jennifer's hands clenched into fists. He wasn't planning to return them, even if I'd given up the contract. He wanted them gone permanently. Maximum pain, maximum destruction. The casual cruelty of it, using children as business weapons, made Jackson's blood run cold. The FBI arrested everyone last night. Ventrell, all 3 kidnappers, 2 intermediaries who facilitated the sale. They're all in federal custody.
facing life sentences for kidnapping, conspiracy, attempted human trafficking. She sat back down, suddenly looking exhausted. For 2 days, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything except getting my babies back. Every law enforcement agency, every private investigator I could hire, nothing. They'd hidden Claire and Chloe so well we couldn't find them. But they made a mistake. They got arrogant, thought they were safe enough to move them, probably heading to the final exchange point when you... She looked at me with something close to wonder. You had no idea who they were, no idea about the FBI manhunt or the investigation or any of it. You just saw 2 children who needed help. That's all that mattered. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. The girls told me what you said when Chloe asked why you saved them. Jackson remembered. I said that's what dads do. They've been asking about you every hour since we got to the hospital, refused to go home until they knew you were okay. She gestured to the sleeping twins. I finally convinced them to rest about an hour ago, but they made me promise to wake them the moment you woke up. They're brave kids. They are, but they were terrified for 2 days, Mr. Owen, kept in a dark room not knowing if they'd ever see me again, and then you appeared. Jennifer's voice thickened with emotion. You fought armed men with your bare hands, got shot protecting them. You're the reason they're sleeping peacefully right now instead of... She couldn't finish. I'm glad I was there. So am I. Jennifer pulled herself together, her business demeanor sliding back into place. The FBI has authorized a reward. Given the severity of the crime, the trafficking element, and the safe return of the victims, $100 million. Jackson stared at her. What? $100 million, Mr. Owen, for saving my daughters and leading to the arrest of everyone involved in their kidnapping. That money is yours. The number was incomprehensible, life-changing, world-altering. With that kind of money, he could... Levi. His son's face flashed through his mind. The last time he'd seen him, crying on courthouse steps. A whole year of missed birthdays, baseball games, bedtime stories. I don't want your money. Jennifer blinked. I'm sorry? I don't want it. Jackson's voice was firm, despite the pain in his shoulder. Keep it. Donate it. I don't care. I didn't save your daughters for a reward. I saved them because they needed help, and I was there. She studied him for a long moment, her sharp business mind clearly trying to process someone refusing $100 million. Everyone wants money, Mr. Owen, especially someone in your situation.
My situation? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You mean homeless, disgraced, convicted felon? Yeah, I could use money, but that's not what I need. Then what do you need? The question hung in the air between them. Jackson looked at the sleeping twins. So peaceful now, so safe. He thought about another child who wasn't safe, who thought his father had abandoned him. I want my son back. The words came out broken, raw, all the grief he'd locked away for 14 months flooding through in those 5 words. His name is Levi. He's 9 now. I haven't seen him in over a year. His mother has full custody. Got a restraining order based on my conviction. She made sure I can't call, can't write, can't see him. His voice cracked. I want to hold my boy again. I want him to know I didn't do what they said I did. Jennifer leaned forward, her expression shifting from business to something more human. Tell me everything. Why? What difference does it make? Because I'm Jennifer Harrington, CEO of Harrington Industries, and I built my empire by seeing patterns others missed. She pulled out her phone. Your story has holes, Mr. Owen. Not from lying, I can tell you're not lying, but from evidence that was hidden or ignored. So tell me everything, from the beginning, and let me decide what difference it makes. Jackson wanted to refuse, wanted to tell her to leave, to take her money and her influence and forget about the homeless veteran who'd briefly crossed her path. But she was still sitting there, waiting. And her daughters, those brave little girls who'd refused to leave his bedside, slept peacefully because he'd made a choice. Maybe it was time to make another one. Afghanistan. he began. Bagram Airfield. I was in charge of a weapons depot, responsible for inventory, security, distribution. My commanding officer trusted me completely. I'd never had a single discrepancy in 3 years. He paused, gathering the memories that still felt like shards of glass. There was a corporal under my command, Dennis Mitchell. Smart guy, good soldier, but he wanted advancement faster than it was coming. When I got recommended for commendation, again, something changed in him. Jennifer was typing notes on her phone, her focus absolute. Inventory discrepancies started appearing in the system. Small at first, a few weapons here and there, logged as destroyed but never actually confirmed. Then classified documents went missing. Things I had access to, but so did Dennis. When did you notice? I reported it immediately. Thought it was a clerical error, or maybe someone testing security protocols. But then money appeared in bank accounts I'd never opened. $50,000, $100,000. Accounts in my name with my social security number, but I'd never seen them before. Someone was framing you. Yeah, someone with access to my credentials, my personnel file, everything. The investigation was fast, too fast. They wanted it quiet. Potential breach of classified information, possible foreign involvement. They didn't look deeper, just followed the trail that had been laid. Dennis Mitchell laid it. Jackson nodded. Found out later, but by then I was already in federal prison. He got my position, got my commendations scrubbed from the record and claimed as corrections he'd made, got my reputation as his stepping stone. And your wife?
The question made Jackson's chest tighten. Ex-wife. Angela filed for divorce the day I was arrested. Had the paperwork served to me in holding. Said she couldn't be married to a traitor. He shook his head bitterly. But the paperwork was already prepared, dated days earlier. She knew. Somehow, she knew it was coming. She was working with Mitchell. They were having an affair, started almost 2 years before my arrest. I didn't know. Too focused on my job, on being a good father to Levi, too blind to see what was happening in my own home. Jennifer's fingers flew across her phone screen. And the judge who presided over your case? Harold Brennan, Federal District Court. He seemed off. Wouldn't allow certain evidence, shut down my defense attorney multiple times. It felt wrong. But I had no proof. Just a gut feeling that the whole theater was theater. Gut feelings are usually pattern recognition. Jennifer stood, pacing now. Your conscious mind sees a pattern before your rational mind can articulate it. Tell me about your son, Levi. Just saying his name hurt. He was 7 when they took me away. Smart kid. Loves baseball. Wants to be a Marine like his grandpa was. He has my eyes, his mother's smile, and Jackson's voice broke. He believed me. Even when everyone else thought I was guilty, even when his own mother told him I was a criminal, he knew. On the courthouse steps, he screamed at them. Dad didn't do anything wrong. The last thing I heard before they took me away. The restraining order? Part of Angela's custody filing. Said I was dangerous, unstable, a threat to Levi's well-being. The judge, same Judge Brennan, granted it immediately. No contact. No calls, letters, visits, nothing. She made sure I couldn't even tell him goodbye. Jennifer stopped pacing. Give me 3 days. What?
3 days. Don't leave this hospital. Recover. Rest. Let me work. She was already heading for the door. I have investigators, former FBI, CIA, forensic accountants, people who are very good at finding patterns that others miss or deliberately hide. Why would you do this? She paused at the door, looked back at him. Because you saved my daughters when you had every reason to walk away. The world destroyed you, Mr. Owen. Society failed you, framed you, took everything, but you still chose to save 2 little girls you'd never met. Do you understand how rare that is? I just did what anyone. No.
Her voice was sharp. "That's where you're wrong. Most people would have called the police and walked away, or more likely, pretended they didn't see anything. You had no weapon, no backup, nothing to gain. But you fought anyway. That tells me everything I need to know about who you really are." She opened the door, then paused again. 3 days, rest, and when you wake up, maybe you'll start believing what my daughters already know, that you're a hero. The door clicked shut behind her. Jackson sat in the silence, his shoulder throbbing, his mind spinning. 3 days. What could anyone do in 3 days? On the couch, one of the twins, Chloe, he thought, stirred in her sleep. She mumbled something that sounded like, "safe now," and curled closer to her sister. They felt safe because of him. When was the last time he'd made anyone feel safe? When was the last time he'd felt like he mattered? Jackson closed his eyes and for the first time in 14 months, let himself hope. Day 1 passed in a haze of pain medication and police interviews. FBI agents came and went, asking questions, taking statements. They treated him with professional courtesy but underlying suspicion. He could see it in their eyes. Convicted felon, homeless, the kind of person society had taught them not to trust. But they took his statement anyway.
Day 2, the twins visited with their mother. Claire and Chloe burst into his room with flowers they'd drawn themselves, crayon masterpieces depicting a stick figure with brown hair fighting bad guys. "You're our hero," Claire announced, handing him her drawing. "Mommy says heroes deserve flowers." "And cookies," Chloe added, producing a box of homemade chocolate chip. "We made them. Well, Mommy made them. We helped. A little." Jennifer watched from the doorway, and something in her expression had changed. The corporate armor had cracked, revealing warmth underneath. "How's your shoulder?" she asked after the girls got distracted by the hospital TV. "Better. Doctor says I can leave tomorrow." "Good. You'll come home with us." Jackson started to protest. "I can't." "You can and you will. You're not going back to that overpass." Her tone left no room for argument. "Besides, the girls have already prepared a room for you. If I tell them you're not coming, there will be tears. Lots of tears. Are you prepared to make 2 7-year-olds cry, Mr. Owen?" Despite everything, he smiled. "That's playing dirty, Miss Harrington. I didn't build a billion-dollar company by playing fair." She smiled back. "And call me Jennifer." That night, Jackson lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow was day 3. Jennifer had promised results. He tried not to hope. Hope hurt too much when it died. But still, he couldn't help wondering. What if? The door opened at 6 a.m. Jennifer strode in with an energy that made the room feel electric. Behind her came 3 people, 2 men in suits, 1 woman carrying a laptop.
"We found them," Jennifer said without preamble. "All of them." Jackson sat up too fast, pain shooting through his shoulder. "What?" The woman with the laptop, tall, African-American with sharp eyes, sat up on the hospital table. "Marissa Chen, forensic accountant. Nice to meet you, Mr. Rowan. You were royally screwed." "Marissa," Jennifer said warningly. "Sorry, but it's true." Marissa pulled up files on her screen. "Dennis Mitchell, your former subordinate. He wasn't just ambitious, he was desperate. Gambling debts, big ones. $500,000 owed to some very bad people." One of the men, silver-haired, ex-military by his bearing, continued. "Robert Torres, former FBI. Dennis needed money fast. He had access through you, but he needed you out of the way permanently. So he made a deal." "With who?" Jackson's voice was barely a whisper. "Your wife, Angela Owen. She'd been having an affair with Dennis for 23 months before your arrest, but she couldn't divorce you without losing benefits, military spouse benefits, insurance, housing allowances. Divorce would cost her. But if you were convicted of a felony, especially treason-related charges, she'd get everything, full custody, all benefits, and victim status. Plus, Dennis gets your position and access to funds he can quietly redirect." The second man spoke, younger, tech specialist by the look of him. Marcus Washington. I specialize in digital forensics. They deleted everything, or they thought they did. I pulled up emails. I recovered communications between Angela and Dennis going back 30 months. Planning, plotting. This wasn't impulsive, this was calculated. Jackson felt like he couldn't breathe. Show me. Marcus displayed the emails chronologically. The early ones were affair-related, meetings, coded language. Then the tone shifted. Jax got another commendation today. They're talking about the Medal of Honor track. We'll never be free of him. What if something happened? What if he made a mistake? Not a mistake, something bigger, something that destroys him completely. The dates, the planning, all of it while Jackson had been overseas, leading men, risking his life.
There's more, Jennifer said quietly. Tell him about the judge. Torres pulled out a file. Judge Harold Brennan presided over your court-martial. I'd been tracking him for years, suspected corruption, but never enough evidence. Until now. He displayed a bank statement. 3 days before your trial, Dennis Mitchell deposited $50,000 into an offshore account belonging to Judge Brennan's wife, laundered through 2 shell companies, but traceable. Brennan made sure your defense couldn't present crucial evidence, blocked your attorney 16 times, rushed the trial. You never had a chance. Jackson's hands were shaking. Why are you telling me this? Because tomorrow morning, Jennifer said, you're going to be exonerated, fully. I've already contacted the Department of Defense, the FBI, and every news outlet that matters. This evidence goes public at 9 a.m. By noon, Dennis Mitchell, Angela Owen, and Judge Harold Brennan will be arrested. And you'll have your life back, Marissa added gently. Your life? Jackson looked at them. What life? I've been homeless for 8 months. I have no job, no home, no... Your son, Jennifer interrupted. You'll have your son. Everything stopped. The restraining order was based on your conviction. Conviction gets overturned, restraining order becomes invalid. Angela's custody claim was based on you being a danger to the child. When the fraud is exposed, that claim collapses. We've already filed emergency custody motions. By tomorrow afternoon, you can see Levi. Jackson couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't believe what he was hearing. There's one more thing, Marcus said hesitantly. He pulled up a video file. This was recorded 3 months ago. A teacher at Levi's school recorded it during a parent day session. The assignment was to talk about heroes. He pressed play. The screen showed a classroom, kids sitting at desks, and there was Levi.
He'd grown. His face had lost some of its little boy roundness, but his eyes, Jackson's eyes, were the same. A teacher's voice. Levi, who's your hero? The 10-year-old looked straight at the camera. My dad, Staff Sergeant Jackson Owen. Other kids whispered. Angela's voice off-screen. Levi, we talked about this. My dad, Levi continued louder now. Everyone says he did bad things, but I know he didn't. My dad is a hero. He saved people in the war. He has medals. He taught me how to ride a bike and throw a baseball and be brave. His voice cracked. And even though I can't see him, even though Mom says I shouldn't talk about him, he's still my hero. And I know he's innocent. I know it. The video ended. Jackson was crying, openly, helplessly crying. All the pain of 14 months, all the grief and rage and loss pouring out. Jennifer's hand rested gently on his good shoulder. Your son never stopped believing in you, and tomorrow you get to tell him he was right. The courtroom was packed. News cameras lined the walls. Jennifer had made sure of that. Department of Defense officials sat in the front row, and somewhere in the back, surrounded by Jennifer's security team, sat Angela Owen, her face pale with terror. Jackson stood at attention in his dress uniform. Jennifer had arranged it, his actual uniform, cleaned and pressed, the bronze star prominently displayed. It felt strange after 14 months, but also right, like coming home. The evidence was presented methodically. Bank records, emails, Dennis Mitchell's offshore accounts that matched exactly the bribe amounts from the false charges, deleted communications between Angela and Dennis, Judge Brennan's payoffs.
Dennis was arrested on the spot when confronted with the evidence. He didn't even try to deny it, just sat there with his head in his hands. Angela tried to run. Security stopped her before she reached the door. But Jackson barely noticed any of it, because in the back of the courtroom, a door had opened, and a small figure pushed through the crowd. "Dad!"
Levi! The boy tried to get over the gallery barrier. Court officers moved to stop him, but the presiding judge, a woman named Alvarez, who'd replaced the disgraced Brennan, waved them off. "Let the boy through," she said quietly. Levi ran. Jackson dropped to his knees, catching his son as the boy launched himself into his arms. "Dad, Dad, I knew it. I knew you didn't do it. I told everyone, but nobody believed me, but I knew." "I know, son. I know." He held him so tight, terrified that if he let go, this moment would disappear. "You're so brave, so brave. I'm so proud of you. You're not leaving again, right? You're staying this time?" "I'm never leaving you again," Jackson whispered fiercely. "Never. I promise." Behind them, Judge Alvarez cleared her throat. "In light of the evidence presented, this court hereby vacates the conviction of Staff Sergeant Jackson Michael Owen. All charges dismissed. Full military honors restored, back pay for wrongful imprisonment to be calculated and dispersed." She paused. "And, Mr. Owen, thank you for your service. I'm sorry our system failed you." The courtroom erupted. News cameras captured everything. The exoneration, the reunion, the justice finally served. But Jackson heard none of it. His world had narrowed to the boy in his arms, the son he'd thought he'd lost forever. "I love you, Levi. You're my favorite person in the whole world. You always have been." "I love you too, Dad." At the back of the courtroom, Jennifer stood with her twins. Claire and Chloe were crying happy tears, holding their mother's hands. "He got his son back, just like he wanted. Because you saved us first, so now we saved him back." Jennifer smiled, watching the father and son hold each other like they'd never let go. "That's exactly right, sweethearts. That's how family works."
6 months later, the garden behind Jennifer's mansion glowed with late spring sunshine. Claire and Chloe were teaching Levi how to play some complicated game involving jumping over chalk lines and singing a rhyming song. Jackson watched from the patio, still occasionally surprised to find himself here. He had an apartment now, Jennifer had insisted, said she was hiring him as head of security for Harrington Industries. The pay was substantial, the job legitimate. She joked that after facing down armed kidnappers with nothing, corporate security would be easy. But most evenings, he ended up here, having dinner with Jennifer and the twins, watching the kids play, talking about everything and nothing. "You know, they've decided you're family now," Jennifer said, stepping out onto the patio with 2 glasses of iced tea. "Claire announced it at school. We have a guardian angel who lives with us sometimes." Jackson smiled. "I don't live here." "You could." The words hung in the air between them. Something had been building for months, glances that lasted too long, conversations that felt like more than friendship, the way she smiled when he walked into a room. "Jennifer," she knew. "I know. It's complicated. You're my employee. There's a power imbalance. The kids, your son, all of it." She sat beside him. "But life is complicated, and I've learned that the best things are worth complicating your life for. I'm still figuring out who I am now. 14 months ago, I had a career, a purpose. Then I had nothing. Now I have everything back, but it's different. I'm different." "You're the same man who saved my daughters," Jennifer's hand found his. "The same man who took a bullet for strangers. The same man whose son never stopped believing in him. You just have fewer scars now." "I have plenty of scars."
"So do I. Different kinds, but they're there." She squeezed his hand gently. "I built an empire alone, Jackson. Raised my daughters alone. Learned to trust no one, because trust gets exploited in my world. But then you showed up. This homeless veteran who wanted nothing from me except to see his son again. And you've never asked for anything else. Not money, not favors, nothing. Because that's not why I know. That's my point. You're the first person in 20 years who hasn't wanted something from me. And it's terrifying and wonderful, and I don't know what to do with it. From the garden, Levi's laughter rang out as he finally mastered the twins' game. Chloe cheered, Claire did a victory dance. They're good together, Jackson said softly. They are, like they've always been siblings. Jennifer paused. What do you want, Jackson? Really want? He thought about it. Really thought about it. I want Levi to grow up safe. I want him to know he's loved, that his dad will always be there. He looked at Jennifer. I want more moments like this where everything feels right, where the past doesn't hurt so much because the present is good. And if I said I wanted that too, their eyes met, held. Then I'd say we should see where this goes. Slowly, because we've both got broken pieces that need time to heal. Slowly, Jennifer agreed. She leaned closer, her shoulder brushing his. The moment was interrupted by 3 children rushing over. Mr. Jackson, can we have ice cream? Claire asked. And can Levi stay for a sleepover? Chloe added. Levi looked hopefully at his dad. Can I, Dad, please?
Jackson looked at Jennifer, who was trying not to laugh. Well, I suppose that could be arranged, she said seriously, but only if you all promise to eat actual dinner first. The kids cheered and ran back to their game. You're good with them, Jennifer observed. I'm just a dad who got a second chance. Jackson watched his son play, still marveling that this was real. He spent 8 months under an overpass thinking his life was over, thinking he'd lost everything that mattered. And now? Now I know that sometimes the end is just the beginning wearing a disguise. That night, after the kids had eaten dinner and ice cream and finally crashed in the media room for their sleepover, Jackson helped Jennifer clean up the kitchen. It was domestic, simple, and somehow more meaningful than any grand gesture. Thank you, he said as they worked side by side, for everything, the investigation, the job, but mostly for believing me when you had no reason to. I had every reason. You saved my children, but you're welcome. And Jackson, yeah, you saved us. Let us save you back. It's what family does. Family. The word wrapped around him like a warm blanket. For so long, family had meant Levi and the ghost of what they'd lost. Now it was expanding, growing, becoming something he'd never expected. Family, he repeated softly. I like the sound of that. Jennifer smiled, and in that smile, Jackson saw his future. Complicated and healing and worth every moment.
2 years after that October rain, Jackson stood in the same garden, wearing a suit that actually fit, watching guests fill white chairs set up on the lawn. The weather was perfect, sunny, warm, not a rain cloud in sight. Levi stood beside him as best man, trying so hard to look grown and serious at 12 years old. He adjusted his tie for the 100th time. You nervous, Dad? Terrified, Jackson admitted. Why? You fought terrorists and kidnappers. This should be easy. Different kind of scary, son. Jackson smiled. The good kind. Music started. The guests rose. And down the aisle came Claire and Chloe, 9 years old now, in matching lavender dresses that they'd insisted on helping design. They scattered flower petals with great seriousness, occasionally glancing at each other and giggling. Then Jennifer appeared. She'd chosen a simple ivory dress, elegant without being flashy. Her blonde hair fell in waves over her shoulders, but it was her smile, brilliant, genuine, joyful, that made Jackson's breath catch. The ceremony was short. They'd both agreed, no need for elaborate speeches or performances, just promises made and meant. I never thought I'd have this, Jennifer said during her vows. Someone who saw me. Not my company, not my wealth, just me. Someone who'd protect my daughters like they were his own.
someone brave enough to fight for what's right, even when the world says it's hopeless. Jackson's voice was steady despite his emotions. You gave me back my life when I thought it was over. You believed in me when nobody else would. You and your girls, you're my family, my home, and I promise to spend every day earning that gift. You already earned it, Jennifer whispered, the day you chose to save 2 little girls instead of walking away.
When they kissed, the kids cheered loudest of all. At the reception, Claire climbed up on her chair to make a toast. We're a family now, she announced to everyone assembled. It started when Mr. Jackson saved us, then Mommy saved him, and then we all saved each other. That's how real families work. Chloe added, and Dad says that families stick together no matter what, so we're stuck with each other now. Stuck with each other, Levi repeated, grinning at his new sisters. I like the sound of that. Later, as the party wound down and the kids finally wore themselves out dancing, Jackson and Jennifer stood at the edge of the garden watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Think they'll be okay? Jennifer asked. The kids, I mean. Blended families are complicated. They'll be more than okay, Jackson said confidently. They already act like they've been siblings forever. Claire's teaching Levi about business presentations. Chloe's learning baseball from him. They're building their own thing. Like we are. Like we are, he agreed. Jennifer leaned against him, and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Behind them, through the windows, they could see all 3 kids passed out on the couch, tangled together like puppies. We're whole now, all of us. All the broken pieces fit together into something better than we were before. Jackson thought about the man he'd been 2 years ago. Homeless, hopeless, separated from his son, convinced his life was over. He thought about the rainy night when 2 little girls had screamed for help, and he'd made a choice that changed everything.
You know what I think? He said. I think sometimes you have to lose everything to find out what really matters. And what really matters isn't money or status or what the world thinks of you. It's this, right here. The people you'd fight for. The people who fight for you. That's very philosophical for a security director, Jennifer teased. I've had time to think about it, he smiled. About a year of time, under an overpass, watching the world go by. I'm glad you had that time, because it led you to us. It led us to each other, Jackson corrected. You saved me just as much as I saved your girls, maybe more. They stood in comfortable silence as the sun finished setting and the first stars appeared. The house behind them glowed with warm light. Their children, because they were all their children now, slept safely. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled. A storm was coming. But Jackson wasn't afraid of storms anymore. He'd survived the worst one and come out the other side stronger. With his son. With his new family. With a future he'd fought for and earned. Rain began to fall. Gentle at first, then harder. But inside the Harrington Owen home, there was only warmth and light and the quiet happiness of broken people who'd found their way to wholeness. Together.
Sometimes heroes don't wear capes or uniforms. Sometimes they're the ones society forgot, the ones living under overpasses with nothing left to lose. Sometimes they're the ones who save children, not because there's a reward, but because it's the right thing to do. Jackson Owen lost everything before he found what mattered most, and in saving 2 little girls on the worst night of their lives, he discovered that the greatest gift isn't wealth or status, it's family. It's belonging. It's knowing that your broken pieces can fit together with someone else's to create something beautiful and whole. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness still changes lives and hope is never wasted, don't let it end here. Subscribe to Soul Lift Stories and be part of our family, where every story lifts the spirit and reminds us that light always finds its way back.
Share this with someone who needs hope today, because sometimes sharing hope is the kindest thing we can do. And remember, you never know when your one act of courage might change not just someone else's life, but your own.